Welcome to John Ryan Finds Out. I am John Ryan, and today we're going to find out what this sound is. Um, so that was the logic behind diving moving there. And as I scrolled down, reading the article, I came upon this picture.
Hmm.
You recognize any of the people there?
No,
Well, the guy
not
on the
so.
left
Hmm.
is Dave Gaskin.
Oh, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. I know
And
Dave.
yep. So David, he's the father of our now women's coach, Sarah Gaskin. And he
Hmm.
also was very much involved in team handball there for a few years, particularly in
Yeah.
2012, 2014
Hmm.
timeframe. Hi, this is John Ryan, and welcome to USA Handball Talk. And joining me, I assume from Florida, is Dennis Berkholtz.
Right here, waiting on
All
you.
right. Hey, so we're gonna jump right into it. I think most people in the handball community know you, but if they don't, can you give me a quick handball and life bio?
Yeah, I started playing in 1969. I was the first guy selected out of a program called Army Champs. And I was a captain of the 1972 Olympic team and coached of the 1976 Olympic team. And president of the sport from 96 to 2000, member of the board several times. And at 81 years old, I'm still involved, at least mentally, in the sport.
Well, that is an awesome uh, brief take on. Uh, there's a lot more there, and maybe we'll get
Well,
into it.
the best part, John, was I was part of the International Committee for Pan American Championships for 8 years. That was a lot of fun because it was eight guys from the different countries in the Pan American sports. And I think we did a lot, but we certainly could have done a lot more. As in the U.S., we can still do a lot more for the sport.
Well, I'm going to go on a brief tangent, um, and I'll put a handball spin on it. But my dad recently passed away at the age of 88, and he had a great life. Um, but and I'm sure maybe you've experienced too. I mean, I don't care how old your father is, when he passes, that kind of hits you, because he was there, you know, as long as I've been alive.
Yeah, I'm sorry I
Um,
lost you here. There you go.
you back? All right.
Yeah, sorry.
Um, well, anyway, my dad, many other members of my family, always a little bit, I wouldn't say bewildered, but puzzled by my fascination with handball. And I remember talking about it when I was a cadet at the academy, and the internet didn't exist back then, so it was kind of hard to explain. Um, but a few years after I graduated, he saw me play for the first time at the 1989 U.S. Olympic Festival in Oklahoma,
Oh
and
yeah.
I'll never forget what his reaction was. But and I'm gonna want your take on it because you're a little closer in age to him. But my dad's reaction was, I can't remember exactly what he said. He either said handballs for pussies or for sissies. Um, and I remember him talking. My dad was a pretty decent high school basketball player. They had a big upset over a Des Moines school, kind of like Hoosiers, um, which was pretty cool. But one of the things he always talked to me about was, he said, if basketball was played the way it is now, and now I'm talking like 80s, 90s, I would have liked it a lot better. And
Hmm.
um, he played in the 50s, so his remembrance, was fouls were called. I mean, you couldn't really. Um, it was a much less physical game. Was his take? Was that your experience too? I mean, you probably played, in the '60s.
Yeah, I played in the mid 60s at Kansas State. And yeah, the game is totally different. I don't even know if I could play these days, this day. I don't like the game anymore. I hardly watch it at all. It's it certainly is different. And the coaches that I had were really top notch. Tex Winter was one of them, and he would roll over in his grave right now if he saw this game played the way it is now.
Well, yeah, especially the way now it's gone from more physical like it was in the 80s and 90s more to like a 3-point barrage.
Yeah. Well, I was a point guard, so I handled the ball a lot, and I just can't believe the way they carry the ball around instead of dribble it. It's uh it's unbelievable.
Well,
Anyway, I don't
right.
agree with your dad though about handball. I think it's the most exciting game I've ever played, and
Oh,
I
no, no,
played.
no. I'm sorry. He said basketball. He said basketball is
Oh,
for
yeah,
sissies.
yeah, yeah,
My
yeah.
bad. My bad. I got confused. Yeah. He loved it. He loved the physicality of it. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
misspoke there. Um, yeah, that was his point. It was like I would have liked this game a lot better than the basketball game I played where
Exactly. Yeah.
there was fouls. So yeah, I misspoke there. But anyway, a good tangent, because parents they look after their kids. I know what it's like now being a father, and it's those are tight bonds.
Yeah.
um, but anyway, let's move back into a straight handball discussion. I'm gonna share the screen here and show a video real quick of
Okay.
uh, back the Port St Lucie match that you were at. So let's go ahead and go here.
Indian River State College just scored a very big win for the Treasure Coast, launching a new partnership with USA Team Handball to establish a national training presence right there in Fort Pierce. Athletes have started to relocate and train with local schools, opening up gym space to support this program. The rollout was marked by a high-profile kickoff event, Air Force versus West Point, in a Commander-in-Chief's trophy match. And that's a matchup bringing new energy, new visitors, and a national spotlight to the area. Leaders say it's a boost for students and the local economy, the Team USA's pipeline, as well as the sport building toward the LA 2028 Olympic cycle.
So all right, I sometimes we have issues with the video. Were you able to see and hear it?
I couldn't hear it, but I saw it. Yes.
It was just a quick highlight of the match, talking about the new program that was set up, and there hasn't been a whole lot of media regarding it, but you were on the ground there. Can you give me uh, your assessment of the setup, the match? I don't know if you learned anything about the residency program plans or anything, but I'll let you go ahead.
I thought it was a good show. I wish they'd have done a few things differently. The crowd was not as large as I would have liked to have seen it, but it was a good crowd, and they brought in some school kids and some teachers, I'm sure. I wish they'd have explained the game a little bit more to the crowd because nobody really understands it the first time they see it. The two teams were average, good club teams. Um, I thought that it was a little rougher in terms of the refereeing. They allowed stuff that I think on an international level or at a higher level would have been called. Um, but overall, it was a good show without explanation, and I wish they'd have had some explanations going on as the game was going on as well, because people don't understand what a common foul is and what a free shot is and a free throw and all the terminology that goes with handball. Um, Overall, they also saw young players who aren't necessarily new to the game, but aren't as talented as the kids that play at higher levels that Mark and who's ever coaching the women's team are going to have to bring in there and see some real talent play handball after a year or a year and a half of good training and competing against European teams. So they got a brief touch of handball. I think that the program will work well down there. I talked to Mark, the men's coach, after the game a little bit. He's got a good plan in mind. I was surprised they didn't have a women's game at the same time, but to my knowledge, they don't really have a women's national team in place right now. But it would been good to showcase a women's program, I think, as well as a men's program. Overall, I'm surprised that they're in the Fort Pierce area. Mark told me about the practice facilities, as I said, and about the plan he has. I think that he's going to be successful putting together a program. I don't know much about his coaching skills anymore, but he's got a good background coaching in Europe at a fairly high level. So, as far as the men's program, I think they're in good hands. I I agree with a lot of people that think we ought to have a European coach with more experience, but it is what it is, and we do need to get more U.S. people involved. So I think Mark was a good selection. I don't know anything about the women's program. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, so not a whole lot. There wasn't like was there like any speeches or anything talking about what was being put in place or anything?
No, and that's a really good point, John, that there wasn't any communication about the program with the fans. And there was the president or the CEO, Mike, what's his last name? I'm sorry, I forget.
Mike King.
Yeah, Mike King, he should have probably said a few words. He was refereeing the game, and he didn't have anything to say. And Mike Cavanaugh was there coaching the Air Force team. He could have said a few things because he's been a stalwart in handball
Right.
at the very highest level. But nobody really followed up on it, and or during the game or after the game, and I think they probably should have done that.
How many people were there, you think?
I would say 300 or 400 at
Oh,
the most.
that's a pretty good size.
Yeah, maybe a couple hundred, but yeah, it was good, and they were enthusiastic. I think when you see handball for the first time, you really kind of watch it. You don't get excited about it too much because you don't understand what a good play is or what a bad play is. I thought the play itself was at a lower level, and I wish it would have been a little bit of a higher level, like a Euro team coming over and playing the better players here in the States. There was an awful lot of sloppy play, and you know as well as I do that a bad handball game is a bad viewing game. A good handball game is a great viewing game and very exciting. And this one wasn't that top level stuff that I would have liked to seen, or I would have put together had I been in charge and we'd be playing in another place.
Yeah, I can see that. I think the positive aspect, I think, schools like Air Force and Army, they have a brand, so to speak. And it, at least some people can recognize if you talk about some of our other clubs that are a little bit less well known. I'm a big supporter of college handball, even if it's not played at the highest level. I think it's an important pathway. I think it's the most important pathway, but people can differ on their views on that. Well,
I don't think
that gives me a little taste of Port St Lucie. Let's dive in a little bit more. I think you saw like the first video I did with Mark Wright, where I was like, I like I said, it's been very quiet, as to what was going on and why Port St. Lucie. That was my big question. So
uh,
let me share the screen again and get your perspective as a Florida resident. You live in Florida, correct?
yes, Jacksonville. Yeah.
Jacksonville. Okay. Let's make sure I got the right screen here. Um, you see the map there?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so as I started hearing more things about Port St. Lucie, I had to like reach into my data bank. I guess that's where the Mets do their spring training.
There are a lot of
Uh,
spring training teams in that area, or several of them, I should say.
well, certainly in Florida, I think that's like on the north end. I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't know. I'm more of a Cactus League kind of guy.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
maybe there's a team in Vero Beach. I'm not sure. But I hadn't really been to a lot of places in Florida, but I'd never been to Port St. Lucie. I mean, I've been to Orlando, Tampa, Cape Canaveral, Miami, Fort Walton Beach, Pensacola. Um, but
Yeah. Well, you missed
I
this area for sure.
yeah, the only thing that made me think of, I had a friend who's from Miami that went to Florida State,
Hmm.
and he would talk about how long a drive it was to get there.
Yeah, yeah,
Because Florida is a peninsula, and
yeah.
I saw it when we played when the French league came over and played matches in Miami. There
Hmm.
was, the only people driving there would be people primarily living in Florida, because if you want to go to Miami, you don't have to fly there, but that's,
Yeah.
there's fewer places nearby. You're a Florida resident. You tell me, when you think of Port St. Lucie and the state of Florida, where does it fit in
Well, it's on
the
the East
geography
Coast,
wise?
centrally located. It's 4 hours from Jacksonville. We're in the northeast corner, and it's a 4 hour drive for us. It's another 2 hours to Miami, and it's 2.5 hours to Tampa. I used to live in Tampa, so I know Florida fairly well. Um, yeah, it's off the beaten path, and my concern about the training there, it's there's an area. It's Fort Pierce as well as Port St. Lucie. I don't know where they're going to get viewership from, and more importantly, I don't know where they're going to get financing from the area. I didn't mention it, but in 1996, I was in charge of a program in Atlanta in preparation for the 96 games. We had both national teams in Atlanta training for 2 years. We got there in early 94. But we raised a lot of money because Atlanta has some wealth and a lot of interest in sports. And I think that's one of the most important aspects of having a national training team in your area is to get funded by local communities and more importantly by local individuals that are wealthy. That's the market we hit. We raised over $1 million in cash in Atlanta, and I don't see that happening where they're at unless somebody's got some real power ties. You got to go to West Palm Beach, which is about 30, 40 miles away.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Um,
yeah, there's obviously synergy with the host city and people
yeah.
wanting to get on board. I still talk, I have to remind people about the Weather Channel and being a
Hmm.
huge sponsor, which
Yeah. Yeah.
seems kind of crazy, but the Weather Channel was in Atlanta and they wanted to get involved, and that was their ticket to get involved, right?
Yeah, and also I was friends on a couple board of directors with the president of the Weather Channel. So, raising funds at a higher level is about knowing people.
Yeah.
And I don't know who knows who in Fort Pierce. It's going to be up to Mark and the women's coach to get out there and talk to people. They're
Well,
going to have some leads to get to what, honestly is called the wealthy people. That's who supports this, at
who
least in
knows
my
who?
opinion.
That's a good transition, because so back in November, as I was hearing more about this, I started Googling and I wasn't getting much. So then I started, expanding, you start looking at different search terms. And so I started, well, maybe the Olympic Committee has something going on there. Because I knew that Charlotte was doing a lot of stuff with the Olympic Committee. Um, you know, uh, a place like even Lake Placid would do things with different sports, and
Mhm.
Utah was doing things, so different communities try and, bring in Olympic programs and start a relationship. So I Googled USOPC, U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, and this was one of the things that came up. And I saw something about, so USA Diving and Indian River State College. That's the college that they're associated with. They have a
Mhm.
partnership.
Mhm.
I said, oh, okay, well there's one sport that's getting involved, and diving's a smaller sport. And, I did a little research, Indian River State College, diving junior college powerhouse. Um, and I don't know how many junior colleges do diving and swimming. I actually looked up swimming and diving, so I don't know if necessarily they have, swimming programs have a diving program, but there are like 15 junior colleges in the country that have a swimming and diving program.
Hmm.
So they were looking at a world-class diving facility there. Um, so that was the logic behind diving moving there. And as I scrolled down, reading the article, I came upon this picture.
Hmm.
You recognize any of the people there?
No,
Well, the guy
not
on the
so.
left
Hmm.
is Dave Gaskin.
Oh, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. I know
And
Dave.
yep. So David, he's the father of our now women's coach, Sarah Gaskin. And he
Hmm.
also was very much involved in team handball there for a few years, particularly in
Yeah.
2012, 2014
Hmm.
timeframe.
Hmm.
Um, so I would assume that this is a connection. Um, the guy on the right, Tim Moore, as I did my research, was also at Auburn. He got his PhD in kinesiology in
Hmm.
the 2011-2013 timeframe. That
Hmm.
also might be a connection. I don't know that for a fact, but uh, certainly this is Tim Moore's LinkedIn page.
Yeah.
All right. Um, but yeah, certainly Dave Gaskin being connected with US because Dave is the president of USA Diving.
Oh,
I
I
don't
didn't
know if
know
you
that.
were there. Yeah.
No, not at
So he
all.
he parlayed the success of the his handball work there
Hmm.
um, to become the president of their board for USA
Hmm.
Diving. Uh,
Hmm.
so so to me
Yeah.
that's the uh, that's the connection. All
Well,
right.
it looks to me or sounds to me like you're probably correct, but what the most important thing to me in relocating national teams to training facilities is the care the athletes get. And I don't mean the physical care, I mean the mental care of having something to do that's fun to do, having a social life, both the men and the women, and having job opportunities
Yeah.
where you're associated with a job that you're working when you're available and they allow you to travel and train. And I don't
Yeah.
see any of that happening.
Well, I will say that if you dig into the board minutes, and I will say, these it says 10 September. We don't typically see them until a couple months later, but I don't know if you can see in the highlighted portion.
Hmm.
See if I can blow it up some here.
There you go. Okay.
Um, I I do see them heavy. There were some questions from the board about this Florida project, and it says a heavy focus was being put on the athlete experience, including ensuring on-site opportunities for anyone interested in relocating. So Mike King was an athlete at Auburn. That was a frequent complaint at Auburn that there really wasn't anything. There was very limited opportunities for employment. You could get a PhD or a master's degree, go to school there, but beyond that, it was kind of limited.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons Auburn didn't work out very well because the athletes didn't have much to do. I've been told, and I would agree with this. What I heard, there's no social life other than the collegiate social life, but you got to have more than that. I'm pretty surprised that Mike King and the board, whomever, didn't select to stay, didn't I don't know, didn't agree to stay in Los Angeles or to put the teams in Los Angeles where you got everything, including a field of great athletes that would have probably easily been able to attend training camps and get to work and have a social life. I was really big in Atlanta, and I still am, about these athletes having a social life and not just being confined to practicing once or twice a day. You got to give them other things to do. And it looks to me like it's going to be addressed, but I have a brother that lives in Stewart, which is about 20 miles from there. And so I've been down there 10 times maybe in that area, and I don't see much happening. It's a retirement place. It's a good place. It's a good city. I'm sure there's good people there, but wow, to have national training camps there for two teams, it's beyond where I would suggest players be, coaches be. But Mark outlined a good program, and if they get athletes down there, he's going to do a good job. But you got to keep them, and you got to keep them happy. It's
Yeah.
all about the athlete and good coaching after that, and also traveling and training. You get a team from Europe coming over there, he's got to fly to Orlando and travel, or West Palm is called an international airport, but it's really limited. They got to go
Yeah.
through Atlanta first. Um, so that people can question the fact that they're training in Port St. Lucie or Fort Pierce area, and they have a reason to question that.
Yeah.
We'll see how it
It,
works out.
it reminds me of all these questions I was asking back in 2013 about Auburn. You know,
Yeah,
like I said, I was the asshole, saying, what's going on here? Have you
yeah,
looked at other places?
yeah.
Um, you know, what was there a proposal sent out saying, hey, we're looking to start a handball program, you know, here's our requirements, here's our needs. I'm sure they were talking to some people, at least I'd like to think. Um, and like one of the things I said, like, hey, maybe we should do a residency program in the city where we're going. That's a that's a
Absolutely.
that's a logical
Yeah.
you know place. But I asked those questions back in 2013, and I had a lot of skepticism um, about it back then. I made a lot of friends with all the questions I asked.
Uh-huh.
And, you make, if you're in a position, you have a website where you do a lot of commentary, you're sticking your neck out a lot of times because
Yeah, sure.
you're not always right. Um,
Nor
and
should you be, John.
what?
Nor should you be. You
No,
gotta,
you know, and this is a case where I was hoping I'd fail. You know, it might that my prognostication would be wrong. I mean,
yeah.
there is like a vindication, but it's a vindication that results in failure. In my mind, Auburn was the single biggest failure in the history of USA team handball. Biggest single strategic mistake. Um,
I totally
and
agree with you.
that,
Totally.
that's a hell of a statement when you think about it.
Yeah.
Of all the things that haven't worked out very well for us, um, you know, it's in some respects, and I was talking to somebody who's involved with handball now. They think Auburn was a success to be repeated, and I was
Mhm.
like, "You gotta be kidding me!"
Yeah.
I am not. I'm not degrading the effort that people put into it. They put their heart and souls into it. But wow, I mean, there's no way you can think that. Your
Mhm.
first thought has to be, "Oh my God, do we really want to do this again?" Um, you know,
Well,
do we need to? Do we really need to? Um, and then if we are, we really, really need to think through how we do it. Um,
well, John, I think in Atlanta we had really good leadership. I was part of that, and I don't mean to be braggart about it, but we had Chris Kappelman there who helped the entire situation. Bryant Johnson, who was an Olympian in '88, he was in Atlanta, and then we had some women working with us. I actually put together a program of having 20 of the more wealthy women in Atlanta as in charge of the program, or not in charge, but overseeing it, and they helped raise money and find jobs. And we had a really good program in a big city. The other thing that's important is not necessarily who you're working with or who you have around you, but it's what kind of a legacy are you going to leave in that area? And the legacy is a youth program or a junior program and a team out of there. In Atlanta, we worked 2 years after the games with a junior program, and then it went away because we didn't have the backup for the people that were there and who had left. But it's really important to have an entire program and not just teams training. And I think they missed the boat, or we missed the boat by not being in the LA area, because that can happen in LA, and I don't think it can happen in Port St Lucie or that area there. It'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Well, I want to talk a little bit more about the need for a residency type program. And I'm going to disagree with you, I think. And I'll explain why I disagree. I guess you were there at the Pan Am Games qualification, Colorado Springs, when we took on
Yeah,
Canada.
I was.
Um, the USA team pretty much smoked Canada pretty easily. Um, I don't know how much you watched. Did you watch the World Championships games that we had back in a year ago, January?
No, I did not know.
Okay. So I watched the U.S. men's national team a lot. I
Hmm.
think I've seen every match that they play.
Yeah, yeah.
As long as there's a stream, I've watched it. And um, we've got a good team. I
Hmm.
mean, we're not going to medal. We might not even win a game, but I think we have our team. Um, and I don't see anyone new to handball having much of a chance of making um, our current team.
Hmm.
And because of that, I really question the need for our men's team to have a residency program. Um, I just, I'm not saying, a lot of times people will use the term waste of time, and I generally don't like to use that because I think even uh, plans that are not well conceived have some utility and something. Auburn produced some people that love handball. They didn't have a college team, but they actually have a college men's teams now, which is good. There were people there to put together a wheelchair team. So some good things came out of it, but it's just not a good use of resources, in my opinion.
Yeah. You know, I wish that we would concentrate more on developing U.S. athletes and not use Euro dual citizenship athletes. I agree with you that I think they're a pretty good team. Whether they can win or not is another question. And we got to stop kidding ourselves about winning medals. And we say that, I know when I was president, and I know it still happens, that's all the USOC thinks about and worries about. And we don't have a chance to win a medal. And it takes, I gave a speech, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago saying it takes 3 cycles to develop a team if, in fact, we were really focused on winning a medal. And we would have to have a team together for 6, 8 years, traveling, training someplace, having jobs in a city. And it could come out of a good club program, but all our club programs seem to be going to Euros, guys flying in Europeans to play on their club teams. I don't agree with that at all. There's got to be a limit to the number of Euros that are playing on these club teams because
You
we're
know,
leaving
it
Americans out of it.
and I guess to me, in some respects, as much as I would like the what I see as the two major goals or objectives in running USA team handball. One is your national teams, and one is the development of the sport. And
Yeah.
I would like to see those 100% aligned, uh, feeding each other. But right now, I don't see them. Um, I don't see any development that you can do that's going to impact our ability to field a competitive team in 2028.
Hmm.
I guess is what I'm going at. And I look at our men's program and I say, maybe you could get, I it would have to be a hell of an athlete, and they would have 2 years to learn how to play, and they wouldn't start. You know, maybe they would be like the 13th or 14th man on the roster, maybe. And I look at the guys, and I know I have a little bit different perspective. I look at anybody with a passport putting their hand up to play, making sacrifices because there's people that pay their way to go to training camps and to participate, even if they weren't raised on a farm in Iowa. They're Americans, and I see maybe possibly a new athlete maybe getting to that 13th or 14th spot on the roster to bump one of these guys that are already pretty decent players that um, that are contributing and have made sacrifices. I don't see anybody making a difference, a
Well,
huge
that's the big
difference.
thing. That's the big thing, John. Yeah, I totally agree with that. We can bring on whoever we want. We're still not going to win a medal. We may win a game.
Yeah, I just don't see him. I just don't see him making a difference, and um, that's why I don't think it's a good use of resources.
Yeah, yeah.
And Mark could probably. I would like to think he learned something in 5 years at Auburn about developing athletes. So if that's what we needed, I would have no problem. You know, and I talked a little bit about how I don't think we're going to get to everything in this episode. We got like 3 minutes left, um, and maybe I can move on to the second part. On the women's side, we needed a program like this yesterday, to field a competitive team. Um, and um, I'm not so sure about Port St Lucie as the location, but we need to bring on some athletes so that we can be more competitive. Um, that's been painfully obvious to me for a long time.
On the women's
Um,
side or on both sides?
on the women's side, the men's
Yeah,
side, we were gifted with a good team without
yeah,
having to spend a penny on development or a residency program.
yeah. The
That
women
is
have a
that is a
long way to
gift.
go.
That is, and I guess it gets back to my point of, um, I lost my train of thought. I, I I'm just frustrated with the whole concept. You got to look at what you have, and you got to really look at what you have, and then design something for what you need,
Yeah.
not what you want to do, but what you need to do. And we don't need players for our 2028 team.
Hmm.
We have our team on the men's side. On the women's side, it's a different animal.
Hmm.
Um,
You're right. I mean,
anyway,
John, I have a saying that I think I developed. I don't know if I heard it somewhere else, but you can build a team and you'll always have players. If you build players, you'll never have a team. And that's what we've done year in and year out is just take players to be Olympians, and we forgot about building the team.
and I will put an asterisk next to that. If by good fortune you're gifted with a bunch of dual citizen Americans that are good athletes, you don't have to build a team. You were given one.
Yeah, that's a
That's
very
not
good statement. Yeah, I agree.
that's not a good strategy long term, and I think we need to do just some development. Um, I tell you what, we got a minute left. I think we touched the surface. I'd like to go into more detail maybe on the women's team here in another episode. Um,
I would do
appreciate
that with you, John, but I don't know anything about the women's team other than
Okay.
Miss Gaskins, the coach.
All right. Well, maybe I'll tackle it on another basis on another day. For sure, if you get 100 people trying out in Los Angeles, You want those people staying in Los Angeles. You don't want to have to say, will you move all the way to the other side of the country to
And they're
go
gonna
play
say
handball?
where? All
And
right.
and on that note, thanks
All right,
thanks
John. Keep up the
Fort
good
Fort
work. You're not
Fort
many
Dennis Berkholtz.